the Velvet Angel ornament. This is really another one of my favorite ornaments. It's very involved, but it's totally worth it. So I had these pieces printed on fabric. This is the body, and that's the head and the arms. And here they are. I sewed them and inverted the body and inverted one of the arms. And once I stuff them, I sew top stitching to make the fingers look more dimensional. So to turn these inside out, the head, I cut a little hole in the back. That won't show, it will be covered up. And then I use my shish kebab skewers to turn it inside out, poke out all of the corners, and then I'm going to stuff that. And part of the reason I love this ornament is because several reasons, but I love the hands on it. They do involve a lot of detail work, but I just love the hands on this. So one of the hands kind of looks like a little claw, and I usually either have this angel holding a wreath. I also made it a Cupid angel. One year I made tiny little instruments, and they were holding them in their hands, and I just really love the way this looks. So I'm using my polyfill stuffing and using my scissors, of course, to stuff these hands, and I have to get the stuffing into the little claw fingers there. And then I do the top stitching with a sewing machine. So I'm going to make about 10 of these, and I'm going to do this video in 2 parts. This is part 1, making the body and the head and the face, and then part 2 will be the clothes, the decorations on it, and the finishing touches. So I think it's just too long to put it all in one video, so I divided it up. So I'm stuffing the head, and then I have to stuff the body. I always start with the legs. They're kind of thin, and I want to make sure I really get the foot stuffed. And I like the legs to be stuffed really firmly so that they don't flop around, so that it's kind of stiff. So I'm just stuffing the body using my scissors, and I do stuff this pretty firmly, not super firm, but the legs are very firm, but the body isn't. So next I sew them up as usual. Now, even though that's going to be covered up, I still sew it up. And I'm going to sew up the back of the head there, and then I also sew up the tops, the open top of the arms. Those will all be covered up, but I sew them up anyways. I just think it's important to do that. So once I finish sewing them up, I keep all the pieces attached like that, then I cut them all apart once I'm finished sewing them. So these are going to have to be painted the flesh color. That would be my next step, and then of course after I paint it they'll have to be dried. So here are the arms. I top stitched them. They're so cute, the fingers, aren't they cute? So this is how they fit together. Of course it's hard to imagine the way it's going to look, but it looks really adorable. So here's my flesh color that I mixed up, and I dilute it with a lot of water, and then I just paint that on for the skin color and have to let that totally dry. I usually let it dry, I don't know, 24 hours is usually what I do. Sometimes I put it in front of a heater or on a radiator if I happen to have one handy, and wait until they dry totally, because of course the stuffing, the polyfill, is getting wet as well, and you want everything to be totally dry before you go on to the next step. So I wanted to do a little bit of detailing with some shading, and so I'm putting this darker brown color in between the fingers to make them look more dimensional. Once it dried, it actually didn't really make that much of a difference, but I had to do it anyway. I also sometimes do that on the face as well. So I'm putting the white on. So I use like a brown in between the fingers and then a little bit of white on the fingers and the palm. So it just gives it a little tiny bit more of a dimension, which is what I like about it. Sometimes I make their faces with the eyes open, and sometimes I make the faces with the eyes closed. And here are a few of my faces with the closed eyes and ones with open eyes. So I was making quite a few, and I needed all those faces. So I'm going also to do a little bit of stitching around the nose to make that a little bit more dimensional. On the faces that I just showed you, those noses were painted on. I didn't do the stitching on those noses, but I decided I used to do the stitching, and then I decided that it was just too much work, and so I painted the nose on, but I'm gonna do the stitching on this because it looks really, really good. So that's what I'm doing there, and that's pretty much finished. And there it is. That looks so cute. I say that about everything. I know, I can't help it. I'm in love with my own work. So these are going to be the whites of the eyes. It's funny how the eyes really make it come to life. And what really makes the eyes come to life is when I do the black detail on it, the eyelash and the outline of the eye. So this is going to be the cheek. I put some red on there and brushed it off on the paper towel, and then I brush it onto the face, and that came out really good. So I have to let all of that dry, and I'm going to now use my little tiny brush and do the lips. And this doesn't take very long to dry, but you want to make sure you let it totally dry before you do anything else, because if you put your finger on it, then you can spread the paint around. So this is my gold marker. It's a Krylon, I think it says 14 karat gold marker. I love these markers. I use them for so many different things. The metallic on it is just beautiful. So I'm painting on her shoes, and I'm also going to paint her crown, the top of her head, gold as well. All of my patterns come from sketches that I've done in my journal. I have a journal that I keep, and when I have an idea for an ornament, I do a sketch of it, and then usually I will blow up the sketch on my copier. And so that's where all these different shapes and faces come from. They're all from drawings that I've done in my sketchbook. So here are her cute little shoes. And so now I'm going to put in the green eye. I usually always make their eyes green. I don't know why. I don't make them blue, I just make them green. So here's that Krylon marker again, and I'm coloring in the crown. I also use Austrian crystals on the crown. I like really, really good quality materials, so I just end up spending the money on the really good stuff. So once this dries, which it dries almost immediately, I'm going to put these tiny, tiny, microscopic little sequins on to the crown, and I actually use this dimensional paint to attach it. I don't use glue, I use this paint, which works just great. So I just put that on, and then I stick those on and hope they'll stick on there, and they always do. I've got it down to a science here. So I have to let that totally dry, and here it is, all dry. And this is the finishing touch that really makes the eyes come to life. It's really amazing how different they look once I do this step. So I always make the top line of the eye, and then I do 3 little eyelashes, and then I also do the pupil in the eye, and this makes it look so real. Isn't that adorable? Just love that. Love those faces. So I always also use the black marker, which is the micron marker, to outline the shoes, and then I also draw a little bow on the shoes. I love all the detailing on this, and I love doing the detailing, and I really like to take the time to do it, and people, my customers, really appreciate it. I know that they do. So that's the end of part 1. And next I'm going to have to make her velvet dress. And I will show you that next time. And thank you for watching, and see you next time.